Hi everyone, Mr. Monotone here. Welcome to part 3 of the Call of Duty on Nintendo series. It's probably going to be the longest part, even though I'm technically only covering one game. If you haven't watched part 1 and 2, please go watch them first. It'd be better if you watched all of these periodically. If you want to watch them, a little link will pop up right up there. Alright everyone, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe, and comment our uncommon of the day, and make sure to watch till the end of the video. For this finale, we're covering a Call of Duty game that released on the Nintendo Wii and Nintendo DS that wasn't an actual Call of Duty game.
Let me explain.
So this game has a bit of a complicated history that we should go over before we start talking about it. So we need to go through a bit of gaming and entertainment history so you can understand what's going on. Kind of be like your average history class, but you know, without the finals, distractions, terrible teachers, and homework. Buckle up for a history lesson. Back in the 90s, Nintendo bought the company Rareware as a third-party developer that would only develop for Nintendo consoles. They released lots of amazing games and made most of my favorite games. Some of the games that were released were Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day. They were also, and right now they're actually working on a game called Sea of Thieves. One of the games that were released was GoldenEye 007 from 1997 for the Nintendo 64. It was the video game adaptation of the James Bond movie GoldenEye, and released back when id Software, the developers of Quake and Doom, were the king of the somewhat new FPS genre. If you don't know what James Bond movies are, they're British movies about James Bond, aka 007, a spy for the British Secret Service. It was written by Ian Fleming, and the first piece of media with James Bond, and it released in 1953. GoldenEye was the 17th James Bond movie, I know, and was in theaters in 1995. It's about James Bond destroying a Russian research center to stop hijacking of a nuclear space weapon, and the rest of the movie takes place 9 years later. And to sum it up, spy stuff happens. GoldenEye innovated on the first-person shooting series in so many ways, and dethroned id Software from being the king of the FPS genre. It was one of the best-selling games on the N64, selling 8 million copies, only to be topped by Super Mario 64 and Mario Kart 64. GoldenEye was one of the first games to include damage that depended on where you shot. It had amazing split-screen multiplayer, included auto-aim, set the standard for computer AI, it had zoomable sniper rifles, it had objective-based missions, popularized respawn points, and so much more for the FPS genre. It was very well known for its extremely fun split-screen which paved the way for new modern FPS games like Call of Duty. Ironic. So, in 2006, Nintendo announced that they were possibly re-releasing the game on the Wii with Nintendo's Virtual Console. The Virtual Console was a part of the online Wii Shop channel that let users buy and download old Nintendo games. Anyways, they got into some legal troubles and couldn't release the port because back in 2002, Xbox bought Rareware all of its IPs and engines, including the game engine for GoldenEye 007. After that, Rareware was put to almost no use for 16 years, only releasing a few meh games like Kinect Sports, Conker Live and Reloaded, and Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. So, Nintendo decided to completely remake the game using a different engine. This time they used the engine for Dead Space and Extraction. They also decided to put it on the DS. And the reason why I'm making this video is because they hired N-Space to port to the DS. If you didn't know, N-Space also created all the Call of Duty DS games. These games portray the new actors and characters instead of the originals, with some exceptions, including the character M. GoldenEye has gameplay and controls that are dated, to say the least. The controls are a bit odd, there's no ADS, and the way you move and look around is fidgety. Unlike the original video game movie, the whole story takes place after the Cold War due to the Soviet Union's replacement by Russia, so the story does not jump 9 years ahead after the opening sequence. N-Space reused their Call of Duty DS engine for GoldenEye. Everything except the maps and weapons are identical to Call of Duty. You can aim sights do almost everything you can do in the Call of Duty DS game. The Nintendo Wii version also doesn't stay very loyal to the control scheme. You can aim down sights and do everything that you could do in Dead Space and more. The game offers several choices of controllers: Wii Remote with Nunchuck, Wii Zapper, Classic Controller, a GameCube controller, and more. Nunchuck, you can also tilt around corners by tilting the Nunchuck, which works very well. This new control scheme was a bit controversial, leading to lots of people saying it wasn't a faithful remake, and I agree. The fidgety aiming and looking could have been fixed. The ADS and the small changes definitely removes the original vibes from the remake. Both the Wii and the DS versions strayed very far from the original, completely removing and changing some missions. The iconic facility mission is completely gone in the Wii version. Some other changes in the campaign can be seen in both versions. The DS version, the original multiplayer maps and features are almost non-existent, bringing back some of the classic modes, but all the maps are different compared to the original, and the online multiplayer doesn't work because Nintendo shut down Nintendo WFC, which is Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, making all online multiplayer games not work anymore. The Wii's multiplayer still works and is very fun and faithful to the original. It has lots of remakes from the N64 game, includes the 4-player sports grid from the original, and has 8-player multiplayer and 4-player split screen. But you can also see that it gets a lot of influence from the Call of Duty series, including XP, kill streaks, and more. The game's multiplayer still does feel like GoldenEye, but a bit modernized, and it works fine in the GoldenEye design. Some people think it's one of the best FPS games on the Wii, and I gotta say, I do agree. GoldenEye on the DS seems to be very rushed by N-Space, because they were simultaneously working on Call of Duty Black Ops and GoldenEye, both games which seem very rushed and unpolished. This game makes you leave to the main menu if you want to change your control scheme. And it includes some terrible touchscreen hacking segments, where the touchscreen is way too insensitive, and it seems like they were just added to extend the game's campaign. It has lots of awkward cutscenes, bad character models and animations, and the multiplayer was the best part of it. It had nothing to do with the N64 version. But it's now offline, so there's no way to do multiplayer unless you can find a friend who also has a copy of the game. Probably the worst N-Space Call of Duty DS game, and that's saying something. It feels more like a Call of Duty game than a GoldenEye game. GoldenEye on the Wii stands up as a good modern FPS game, not a faithful remake of the original. You can see that Activision Eurocom really cared about the project. The multiplayer is fun, the campaign is alright, but it feels more like a Call of Duty game than a GoldenEye game. The control scheme doesn't bother me as much for this game though. The main problem with GoldenEye on the Wii and the DS being a remake was the fact that the game lazily copied other pre-existing game engines. And this created some changes to the gameplay that nobody wanted to see, and that the game really didn't need. And the DS one is the main culprit for this. The new Wii version tried to stay much closer to GoldenEye, but kept these changes that frankly most people wouldn't care if they weren't added to the game. GoldenEye Wii port was eventually released on the Xbox 360 and PS3 with new changes like updated graphics and other small changes. It sold 53,000 copies on the PS3 and GameStop rated it 8 out of 10. Some of you may be asking for the third time, should I buy this game? And again, I'm gonna say no. Even for the Wii, PS3, and Xbox versions, there aren't a lot of people who still play these ports, so the multiplayer is dead. And it's a waste of money, because if you want to play a good and completely faithful GoldenEye port, you should really try GoldenEye Source. It's a fan-made game for PC using the Source engine, which is made by Valve. Super faithful to GoldenEye multiplayer, and it's so much fun when you're using mouse and keyboard controls. It has awesome remixes to the original game soundtrack, has an active community, and has lots of updates. The game is free to play and is only a 2GB download. The game is amazing, it's not only a remake but also a multiplayer game. I've sunk so many hours into this game. Now to conclude this series, I'd like to talk about why the Call of Duty games stopped releasing on the Wii U and the DS. I haven't gone over the Wii U games, but to summarize, the Wii U received 2 Call of Duty games, Black Ops 2 and Ghosts, and the DS stopped releasing games after Modern Warfare 3. First, the DS. Back when Black Ops 1 released on the DS, it sold only 590,000 copies, while Black Ops Zombies on iOS, which released at the same time, is still number 10 in adventure games on the App Store. Activision simply gave up on releasing Call of Duty games on the DS because phones and tablets were becoming a competitor for portable gaming, and now had better hardware compared to the DS. For the Wii U, the Wii U had hardware that was a bit worse than the 360 and PS3. The newest game it could handle was Ghosts, a game that also released on the PS4. The next game in the series, Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3, were known for barely running on the PS3 and Xbox 360 hardware, so there was no way that it could have run on the Wii U without a deal with the devil.
You guys have enjoyed the series more than I have, because boy, I've spent way too much time studying the complicated history of GoldenEye and the Nintendo Wii. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end, and I hope you guys all have a great day.